Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another video and today's topic is the land of Jesus. About those missing time zones. A couple of months ago, I made a video about the translation of what people in typically the Little C's in eschatology will call the land of Jesus. And I pointed out that Terra de Ieso is not translated to the land of Jesus. And a lot of people were not happy with that, but I'm going to, and I'll actually show you that it does not translate to that. But I want to just share with you one comment that I got because she brought up something else that I wanted to address today regarding the land of Jesus. So this was on the land of Jesus video that I made. And she said, "You literally ranted the whole time about the name," which I'm pretty sure that I said at the beginning of the video that I was going to be going over the name. But anyway, her whole point is the land that appeared in old maps and no longer does. The missing time zones. The fact no one can travel there. The fact there is an international date line. This debunking video is 15 minutes of my life I will never get back. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. But anyway, let's go over these things. So first of all, I'm just going to show you what I was referring to about the name because that was the point of that video. If you go to the translator, it will tell you. Now, a lot of people have been saying that it was a Latin phrase. It's not. It's French. And it translates to land of Ieso. And so many people are seeing the similarities between this word and Iesus, and because they said that the I was before the J, so Iesus was also Jesus, and so since this is similar, it must mean Jesus, but that's not what it means. We can actually look this up. It actually translates as Azo, and it tells us here that Azo is the Japanese term historically used to refer to the people and the lands to the northeast of the Japanese island of Honshu. This included the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido, which changed its name from Azo to Hokkaido in 1869. So if we look here on the map that they show, it is the Terra de Ieso map. And you can see here that it is just north of Japan because it says that right down here. You can see that says Japan, Ocean, Oriental, and then here is the Terra de Ieso. And like I said, Ieso is translated as Azo, and it also says Yeso redirects here. I think if I go back, I can even show you. I typed in land of Ieso here, and it brought this up, map of the land of Ieso. So it is the same thing, okay? So this is talking about an island off the coast of Japan whose name was changed to Hokkaido. It does not mean the land of Jesus. Now I typed in Terra de Ieso map, and I just took screenshots of what came up. And if some of you are going to say, oh, well, that's AI. Why are you trusting AI? Well, a lot of the people who are following the land of Jesus idea also follow a channel, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, called My Lunch Break. And he largely uses AI to support his conclusions. So if you don't have a problem with him doing it, I'm going to use AI here. And it says, a Terra de Ieso map is a name for a decorative antique map of the area of Japan and surrounding waters, particularly Hokkaido, which was mistakenly believed to be connected to North America by early cartographers. These maps, created by European map makers like Alain Manisson-Mallet and Pierre Duval in the 17th and 18th centuries, are based on the discoveries of explorers and show a hypothetical land bridge or close proximity to the American continent. And then it says what it depicts. The map shows the Japanese island of Hokkaido, which Europeans called Terra de Ieso or Azo. And it also includes other geographical features. And I'm not sure which way I have to go. Nope, not that way. I have to go this way. And that's not it either. Hold on, how many of these do I have? Ah, it's still over here. Okay. Then the other part, I don't know why they didn't show up next to each other, but in my files. But anyway, historical context. Created during a time of exploration and discovery, European map makers included this land of Iaso as a separate, poorly understood landmass that was thought to be connected to North America, often separated only by a narrow strait. And its purpose, the maps were often decorative, created as part of larger world maps or as standalone educational tools. They served to visually represent the European understanding of the world at the time, which shows why the commenter said why the lands aren't there on the maps today. It's because it was not correct. So it represents the European understanding of the world at the time, not to mention that I think that the commenter is probably looking in the wrong place for this. But we'll get to that in a minute. Even when that understanding was correct. I'm sorry, not correct, inaccurate. Okay, so again, her whole point is the land that appeared in old maps and no longer does. Well, I mentioned I think it might be because, well, first of all, they were inaccurate. Cartography was not a very accurate skill, especially at that time. We don't even get maps right today. And then additionally, it says it could also be because, again, this was a Japanese island. And from what I have seen from many people who think that this is the land of Jesus, they think it's like up in the Arctic somewhere. And here's why, because we're getting to the next one. The missing time zones, the fact no one can travel there, the fact there is an international dateline. All right, so I decided that I was going to search these missing time zones, and most people will tell you there are 3 missing time zones, which honestly, I'm just going to say this. I'm just saying this. I'm not saying this in a mean way, but I don't understand why time zones would matter to Jesus in the first place. So I don't really see the significance of it, but there's no missing time zones. That's my point. Okay. I think what has happened is that there has been some confusion conflating this land of Iaso with another area that's in between Russia and Alaska, and it's called the Diomede Islands. And the reason that I think that there is confusion and they're thinking that the land of Azo, I'm going to call it, is actually where the Diomede Islands is because we're going to bring in these missing time zones. Because the only place that I have been able to find where there are 3 missing time zones, and there are also other similarities, are the Diomedes Islands. And again, that's because there is one bigger Diomede Islands that is owned by Russia, and then there is a smaller one that is owned by the United States. So many of the people that have been commenting about this Terra de Iaso and talking about these missing time zones have said they're between Russia and Alaska. So there you go, the Diomede Islands. Now, there is a reason that there is. This is my house. That's my cat again. Anyway, there is a reason that there are missing time zones. It's nothing mystical. It's nothing secretive. It is because of the international dateline, which I saw the commenter also questioned, and I'll get to that. But first of all, let's just read what this has to say. There are 2 main islands in the Diomede Islands group. Little Diomede, which is in the Alaska time zone, and Big Diomede, which is in the Kamchatka time zone. This results in a 21-hour time difference between the 2 islands due to their separation by the international dateline. So there are 24 hours in a day. That's where people are getting this 3-hour missing time zones from. Okay. And then it just shows you the time zones from Little Diomede is on Alaska time, and UTC -9 or -8 because they observe daylight savings time. And then Big Diomede, which is Russia, and that's UTC +12. So the standard time difference is that the Big Diomede is 21 hours ahead of Little Diomede. And so many of you might be thinking to yourself, well, okay, but why is there a 21-hour difference if they are only, I think they're 2.5 miles apart? And we're going to get to that too. Well, the reason for that is because, let's see, which map do I want here? The islands do run one on each side of the international date line. And so there are many of you who are saying, but there's 24 hours in a day. Why is there 21 hours between them? Because the international date line is not just a straight line down the middle of the map, so to speak. It kind of zigzags because it also goes according to political boundaries. Okay, so part of the point of the international date line is, well, keeping order with dates and times and things like that around the world. And we'll get into that also. But it's also so that nations will stay in the same time zones. So we have Russia on one side. So the big Diomede Island was actually placed in a Russian time zone. Now, from what I understand, Russia had some control over which time zone that would be in. And then the little Diomede Island was placed on Alaskan time. So that is why there's a 21-hour difference between them, because it isn't just a straight line. It goes according to political boundaries. So Diomede Islands was placed in a Russian time zone. That's why. It's really it's not a huge deal. So the question for why is there an international date line? Well, it tells us down here. Time zones slice the Earth into 24 vertical strips. Each roughly represents an hour of difference from its neighbors. The international date line, sitting mostly at the 180-degree meridian, marks the place where one day turns into the next. When you cross it from west to east, you go back a day, step from east to west, and you leap ahead. I'm actually going to go back a little bit because I think this is pertinent too. New Year's Eve is a universal celebration, yet the very moment it begins is not the same everywhere. When fireworks burst over Sydney, the sun still shines in Los Angeles. This uneven rhythm of time is stitched together by invisible lines on the Earth's surface, and none is stranger than the international date line. It refuses to behave, twisting like a ribbon across the Pacific. Let's unravel why it zigzags instead of cutting cleanly through the world. Quick takeaway. The international date line isn't straight because it bends around nations and territories to keep them within the same calendar day as their closest cultural and economic partners. Its curve represents political agreements, human convenience, and the global balancing act of time, because it is important that we around the world do have some order in the way that we keep time. Otherwise, it would be complete chaos and each nation would be going according to its own timepiece. Okay, so here it says, imagine you live on an island just west of the 180-degree line. Your nearest trading partner lies to the east. If the date line runs straight, your calendars would differ by a full day. A Monday for you would be a Tuesday for your neighbor. Schools, businesses, and flights would all be confusing. To prevent that, the line bends around groups of islands and territories. This keeps neighboring communities in sync with their economic and cultural ties rather than with strict longitude. And then it gives you some examples of the dateline quirks. And then when the international dateline was proposed, it didn't come with rigid enforcement. Each country was free to adjust the line's course for its own reasons. The result was a jagged path, reflecting global diplomacy rather than scientific neatness. And then it just gives some more examples. So as you can see, that just reiterates what I was saying. Big Diomedes Island is on the Russian side, Little Diomedes is on the Alaskan side, and they are both in the time zone of their respective I don't want to say owners, but basically, what political boundary they belong inside of. Okay, it's not some big mystery. And it also says here, because they are separated by the international date line, Big Diomede is almost a day ahead of Little Diomede. So I'll leave all the links for these in the description if you'd like to look at them. So some of you might be saying, well, how do you know that that's what that they're getting confused with the Diomede Islands? Well, because there are other similarities as well. So as we can see going to this comment, besides the not missing time zones, it says the fact that no one can travel there, and we already went over the international date line and why it is in existence. So the fact that no one can travel there, and in addition, now she didn't say this, but I have seen other people talk about it, a strait that apparently forms that people can cross, but they say you're not allowed to go there. Well, there's a similarity because in the Diomede Islands, it says, in the right wintry conditions, an ice bridge forms between the Diomede Islands in the Bering Strait. Theoretically, this is the only place where you can walk from Russia to the United States and vice versa. However, travel between one Diomede to the other is strictly forbidden. So voila, now we have this. You're not allowed to travel there. This is regarding going from one island to the other. And I would say that is likely because they're two different countries. So, I live in the United States, but even when we cross north into Canada, you still have to cross where you can show your passport and, all of those formalities. So I'm sure that is why you can't walk from one island to the other from either side. Now, this will tell you there's also a military presence there. And I know that's when the conspiracies are going to come out and people are going to say, oh, do you see that there's a military presence there? Well, I mean, look where it is. Russia, Alaska, Russia, US. So I think it's a pretty logical conclusion that the military would have an establishment on a set of islands that is smack dab in the middle of the two countries and so close to both of them. So I don't think that should be a huge surprise to people. Okay, but anyway, on the west side sits, oh, by the way, though, you can, like, if you are Russian, you can travel to Big Diomede. Okay, this was talking strictly between the islands. You can't travel from one to the other. However, you can travel to the Big Diomede Islands, but you have to have permits, which is similar to Antarctica, which I know, like, I was one of them. Why do you need permits to go down to Antarctica? So, the military, they do some stuff that we don't know what they're doing. But again, I don't think this has anything to do with Jesus. Why would he hide up there? And, if this is where I've heard that there is a YouTuber who's trying to raise money to travel to the North Pole, or maybe, I don't know, to see if Jesus is there in the camp of the saints. But honestly, like, please be logical with yourself. If this were the case, would Jesus make it so difficult for people around the world to travel there? I mean, would he hide? I don't know. I know he would not hide. Okay? Not to mention the fact that the Bible says that Jesus' kingdom is spiritual, but we're not going to get into that today. All right. So on the west side sits Russia's Big Diomede with a population of 0. The smaller Little Diomede to the east has a small population of 82 as of 2021. So again, people are going to say population of 0. Well, if it's a military facility, it makes sense. Again, I don't know what they're doing there, but if you're going to think just using logic, the fact that it's sitting there between the two countries is, I think that gives us the reason right there. It's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's convenient. I couldn't think of that word. Wow. Anyway, and then it says the international dateline rests between the two land masses. Big Diomede, nicknamed Tomorrow Island, is 21 hours ahead of Little Diomede, nicknamed Yesterday Island. So that's pretty neat. So yeah, that's all that I really wanted to share with you regarding this. So again, Terra de Ieso does not mean land of Jesus. It means land of Azo. Terra de Ieso was not in, like, up towards the Arctic. It was just off the coast of Japan. I mean, it even says that right here. Japan shows that right here. And I think that there is confusion and that there's like a mixture of characteristics of these places. So they're kind of putting this where this is, because again, there's a strait that shows up between those two islands where you can walk from one to the other, and you can't travel from one island to the other. So yeah, in my opinion, that's what this is all about. And also, again, in my opinion, Jesus wouldn't hide anywhere. But that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work and would like to become a channel member, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. Or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.